Welcome back, guys. Johnny Keck at AMP Futures. We're going to take you into the next exit strategy, the trailing stop exit strategy. We just covered how to use the break-even strategy, so we're going to go ahead and show you how to use the trailing stop. This is another popular exit strategy that's used within MultiCharts.net. The difference between a trailing stop and a break-even strategy is where a break-even strategy, if the market moves a certain amount of points in your favor, also known as a profit trigger, it will move your stop to break even. But if the market continues to move in your favor, that stop will no longer trail or move. It's pretty much just going to be at the break-even level. So the difference with the trailing stop is it will continue to trail, so as long as you're in the position and the criteria of the trailing stop parameters that you have inputted are going to continue to be met based on market moving in your favor. So therefore, it will continue to trail the stop, and we'll show you how to implement those values. So let's get right into it. We're going to go ahead and select and identify the trailing stop exit strategy by left-clicking the icon. And you can see here, trailing stop strategy. So let's go ahead and read the short description. Trailing stop strategy, this stop order is adjusted as the price moves in a favorable direction. The stop order trails behind the price and comes into effect if the price goes against you. You can place trailing stop limit or trailing stop market orders. And so if you right-click on the trailing stop exit strategy and go to edit, let's take you through some of the parameters that you see here. And I'm going to simplify this just a bit. I won't get into the additional levels, because once you have an understanding of how to do it on one level, you will have an understanding how to implement the additional levels. So for now, let's keep the trailing stop levels to 1, and then we'll get into how to increase the levels, which is very simple. The first thing that I want to cover are the two values. Real quick, before I get into this, I do want to show you it is necessary to place an initial stop in order for you to use a trailing stop. I always say that's going to be the case as well for the break-even strategy, because if you don't have a stop in place, and that means there's no stop to trail, or there's no stop to move to break even. So let's go ahead and set the initial stop loss, which is going to be the stop loss strategy here. We're going to right click, go to edit, and we're going to go and set the actual stop loss itself. So we'll keep that value at 8, which is going to keep it simple, which would be a 2-point stop on the mini S&P. We're going to hit save. Now you can see that extra stop loss strategy has been auto attached. Now we're going to go to trailing stop, and we're going to right click and go to edit and get right back to those parameters. So let's go over amount of profit. So you can see here the first field where it shows amount of profit. What that means is that's the amount of ticks the market has to move in your favor in order for the trailing stop to kick in. So that's what we call basically the profit trigger. All right, so amount of profit is 4. That would mean that if we were hypothetically long from 2063, the market would have to go to the 2064, which is 4 ticks away in a favorable direction in order for the trailing stop to continue or to kick in. So you see here stop loss. Stop loss, this is where there's sometimes this confusion. Customers think that that's a 4-tick stop loss for the initial trade itself. That is not true. However, what I want to explain is the stop loss is basically the amount of ticks that the stop is going to trail behind the last trade price. So for example, if we kept these values at 4 and 4, and let's go ahead and just auto attach to orders. If I click more parameters, this will give you the ability as just like the break-even strategy, you can select what type of order you want to use, whether it's day order, good till cancel. Also, you can choose a different stop order type, whether it's a stop market or stop limit. If you decide to use stop limit, just be sure to set your offset value. For now, I'm going to keep these parameters as is, but the main thing I want to make sure is I auto-attach to orders since I'm still flat and I'm not in the position just yet. So we'll keep this at 1 level. We're going to hit save. Now you can see that the stop loss is auto-attached and as well as the trailing stop. So now my strategy is ready to go. Now it's just a matter of placing the trade. So I'm going to go ahead and just right-click on 2058. And we're going to place a buy limit at 2058 even. So there, I'm going to place a buy limit at 2058 even. And now let's go ahead and review what we see here to make sure everything is correct. So you can see that I'm working to buy 1 contract at 2058, which is where my buy limit is stored. And then let's go ahead and look at the initial stop loss. So we remember, if we get filled at 58, we want to have an 8-tick offset for stop loss. So that means that we should have a sell stop at 2056 if we were going to get filled at 2058 to the long side. And as you can see here, the transparent order showing a representation that the sell stop is going to be implemented at 2056, which is correct. All right, so the stop loss is correct. Now let's look at our trailing stop parameters, and let's look at the values that we have set here. Amount of profit 4, stop loss 4. So this basically means that if the market moves 4 ticks in my favor for my entry price of 2058, which is going to be 2059, if you notice, I know it's hard to see it, but there's a little line there that says trigger level. So that's basically where the trigger level is going to be when the position moves to that specific price point. And then if you notice here, the stop loss at 56 is then going to move to 58, if you notice stop loss here, the value is 4. So that means it's going to be 4 ticks behind the last trade price. So if the market were to hit 59, which is our profit trigger or trigger level, at that point in time, amount of profit would be 4 from our entry price. And then that would then move our stop 4 ticks behind the last trade price, which technically should be at 20.59. So our stop's going to be at 58. All right, so this is what's nice about MultiCharts.net. You see a display of the strategy in effect, so you know it's going to work. Another thing is if you notice, well, right now you don't notice it at the moment, but what happens is if the market then moves to, let's say, 60 even, then what's going to happen then is, well, when the market moves here to 59 and our stop moves to 58, you're then going to see this trigger level at 60, and then you're going to see this trail stop at 59. And that's because it's going to move another 4 ticks in our favor and then continue to trail our stop 4 ticks behind the last trade price. All right, so that's exactly what that 4 by 4 means there. When you have 4 set for the amount of profit, that's the profit trigger. That's how many ticks the market has to move in your favor for the trailing stop to kick in. And then the stop loss field to the right of it, whatever value that you have set there, if you have this based on ticks, is going to be the amount of ticks that it trails behind the last trade price. All right, and again, you can change these values up based on percentages or ticks. For myself, I prefer ticks. It's just a little more straightforward. And then if you decide to use the additional levels, then just simply increase the levels here. If you notice, if I hit the up arrow, it changes the number of levels to a greater value. The maximum is 5. And what happens is if the first criteria of level 1 is met, then let's say it gets into the criteria level 2 and those conditions are met, then it will override the previous level. Every level is going to be based off the original entry price. So if you set the amount of profit of 10 and 10 for level 2, that's 10 and 10 based off the original entry price. All right, so just keep that in mind. If you decide to use additional levels within the trailing stop, it's always going to be based off the original average fill price in terms of how those values are implemented. Other than that, if you want to keep things simple, you can keep it down to just one level and just simply use a continuous trailing stop. And when I say continuous, that means that the trail stop will continue to trail so as long as the position is open. Of course, when the position is closed out, either if you got stopped out or if you reached your profit target, then of course there is no more position, so a trailing stop becomes irrelevant at that point in time. Other than that, guys, that's the trailing stop within MultiCharts.net. Very simple to implement. Just be sure to auto-attach if you're not in the position. Otherwise, if you already are in the position, you always can go back and use the apply to open position option as well if you forget to auto-attach the strategy. Other than that, guys, that's the trailing stop exit strategy. Thanks for your time. We'll see you next time.